Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about free versus paid events. I'm going to break down the pros and cons of each. And at the end of the video, I'm going to be letting you know what I prefer and also how you can make free and paid events work together. This is a very important video for any coaches, consultants, or community owners that are in the events industry or even just interested in getting into the events industry, because free and paid events are very different. Like I said, there's pros and cons to each, and you can leverage the pros while being aware of the cons and still make them succeed for your business. Now, with all that talk, I'm going to jump into my computer right now and we're going to break down the pros and cons of free and paid events. Free versus paid events, which is better? Like I said, I'm going to be diving into the pros and cons of each. And at the end, I'm going to be revealing what my preference is and also how you can make free and paid events work together. So let's dive into it. Starting off with free events, the first pro I want to talk about is volume. Free events equals more volume most of the time. I'm not going to promise you that you're going to have more people show up to your event if it's free instead of paid, but almost all of the events that I've worked on and all the events I've attended, free events equals more volume. And if you can master getting people to show up to your free events, you can have some massive events on your hands. Like some of the biggest events that I've worked on and some of the biggest events I've attended have been free events, especially free virtual events. You can get a lot of people on a free virtual event. But like I said, you need to master the art of getting people to show up. And I actually made a video a few weeks ago, I believe, on increasing show up rates for your events. So if you're hosting events, especially if you're hosting free events and you're having trouble getting people to show up, go watch that video. I'll link it at the end of this video so that you can just go right into it. It's a great video, has lots of good tips for you to increase your show up rates. So pro number one for virtual events is volume. Up next is a shorter marketing cycle. In our free events, we've seen that people who register outside of 14 days of the event just don't show up. So with that being said, we now do a 10 to 14 day marketing push for free events. And this is really nice because it just shortens the entire cycle of planning the event. You know, if you're only doing a 10 to 14 day marketing cycle, you really don't need to start working on your virtual event until maybe 30 days out. If it's a big event and you're going to have speakers and you're going to have a lot of coordination, then maybe you need to start working a few months out. But if it's just going to be you in a Zoom room for a couple hours a day, you really don't need to start planning that out until a month in advance, because you won't be doing any marketing until 10 to 14 days out from the event. And this can get you on a really nice cadence of doing these once every month, once every couple months, maybe once a quarter, just because they are so easy to plan. That's one of the biggest pros of a free event, is a shorter marketing cycle. Now, con number one is low quality attendees. Unfortunately, for free events, quantity does not equal quality. It's likely that a lot of attendees won't be a good fit to buy your high ticket offer or even your offer in general if you're not doing a high ticket offer. But that being said, it's not the end of the world. You know, we've hosted dozens of successful free events, and you just really need to account for the lower quality attendees that are going to be showing up. And it really is just a volume game with free events. So if you have 1,000 attendees on your free event, you can assume that half of those aren't going to be qualified for your offer, maybe even 60 to 70%. So in order to increase the number of high quality attendees in your virtual event, you just need to increase the number of attendees in general. And you can have all sorts of qualifiers leading up to the event as well. You can have applications. You can be very crystal clear in your marketing about who the event is for and who it's not. You can definitely qualify people and scare away people that wouldn't be qualified. But for a free event, you're just going to have a lot of low quality attendees. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, because it's a numbers game, and you can get a lot of high quality people into a virtual event. And we've had multiple 6-figure free events where we just had a ton of people on there, and yeah, a lot of people weren't qualified, but because we had so many people on, a lot of people were qualified. So just keep that in mind. And con number two, I kind of briefly mentioned this in the pros, but low show up rates. With free events, your show up rates are just going to be lower, and that's because there's just no skin in the game for your attendees. But this is the same as the low quality attendees. It's not the end of the world. You just need to account for this when making your projections. So if you have 3,000 people that are registered, you can make it a goal for yourself to have a third of those, maybe 25% of them show up, and you just go really, really in depth and provide a lot of value for those people that did show up to the event. And the best part about this is if you have 3,000 registrants, you can still market to those registrants. They can be included in all the sequences, especially the follow-up sequences. So it's not a lost attendee if they don't show up to the event. It's just going to be, the event itself might be smaller, have a much smaller show up rate, but you can still work with all of those registrants if you collect the contact info. So it's not the end of the world. Like I said, we've hosted dozens of successful free events, and some of them have generated more than 6 figures in revenue. You just have to account for all of this when you are planning your events, and make sure you're not upset when you have a 30% show up rate instead of a 75% show up rate. Now, moving on to paid events, the first pro I want to talk about is pre-event revenue. With paid events, it's really nice to enter into the event with some revenue in the door. That's because you're selling tickets and you're collecting ticket revenue before the event. And with the cost of virtual events being so minimal, it's likely you can even turn a profit before the event kicks off. So if your overhead is only $5,000 and you end up generating $10,000 in ticket revenue, that's $5,000 in profit before you even enter into the event. And then everything that you generate at the event, all your upsells, if you're selling a high ticket offer, all of that is just pure, cherry on top, whatever the saying is. That's all butter on top. I don't know if that's the one, but it's all profit. There's no other expenses you have to account for, and it makes it really nice when all of your expenses are covered with ticket revenue, so you can just enjoy all the profits that come in the back end. So that's pro number one. Pro number two is higher quality attendees. So this is just kind of going against the con of free events. The attendees for your paid events are going to be much higher quality than your attendees for free events. And since these people paid, they're going to be much more likely to show up and also more likely to buy your offer since they've already displayed purchasing behavior. They have skin in the game. If someone's going to spend $100 on your ticket, they're most likely going to show up to get their money's worth. And since they've already displayed that buying behavior, it's much more likely that they're going to be higher quality so that they will buy your offer on the event. So kind of the example that I gave for the free events, if you have 1,000 attendees, maybe half of them will be qualified and half won't, maybe even like lower than that, maybe 25% will be qualified and 75% won't. For a paid event, you could see more like 60 to 70% are going to be qualified instead of 25 to 50. So you're going to have more high quality attendees, but that being said, the volume is going to be a little lower. I think that's a con later in this video, so I'll hold off on that. But just something to account for. Con number one is paid events are obviously harder to sell. This one's rather intuitive, but something that is paid is a bit harder to sell than something that is free, unless you're just a wizard at marketing. Maybe you're just so much better at selling paid stuff than you are free. Then if that's the case, then more power to you. But most of the time, paid stuff is a little bit harder to sell than free. If you're going to do a paid event, you're going to need to spend a lot of time crafting a solid marketing campaign and also begin this campaign at least 4 weeks out from the event. 4 weeks would even be a little close, depending on the size of your event and how important it is. Maybe it's a 3-day sales conference and you're going to have speakers come on. You might need to start marketing your event, 2 months out, 3 months out. It's just the marketing cycle is going to be a little bit bigger, which is going to make the overall planning cycle a little bit bigger. And this is all going to be a little bit harder to sell than a free event. So make sure you're accounting for all of this when you are planning for your paid events. Con number two is pressure to deliver. So when you enter into the paid event world, you are now under the pressure to deliver. You're taking someone's money in exchange for value, and you really need to provide that value. And if you don't, if people spend their hard-earned money on your event and it sucks, that is going to damage your wallet and your reputation. So if you're going to be charging for your event, make sure that you over deliver your face off. Make sure it's a great experience for your attendees, because if anybody's going to spend their money, you want to make sure, at least at the bare minimum, that they feel like they got their money's worth. Hopefully you make them feel like they got their money times 10 worth at your virtual event, and hopefully that they found it so valuable that they're going to buy your offer and continue to work with you. However, at the bare minimum, you want to make sure that they got their money's worth. You don't want to be known for the person who takes their money and then hosts a very low quality event, and you're going to find a lot of bad reviews about yourself online. And people who have good experiences sometimes will praise you to their friends and talk to people and post about you online. That sometimes happens. It's nice when it does happen, but it doesn't always happen. However, if someone has a bad experience with you, they're much more likely to post that online. For me, I was talking to my girlfriend the other day, and we were talking about reviews for restaurants, and I told her I had only ever left a review at a restaurant when I had a bad experience, because I was just like so angry, and in the moment I was like, what, I'm gonna go and write a terrible review for this restaurant. And sometimes I regret it after. I know it can be, stuff happens, people have bad days, but most of the time people complain and write reviews when they are upset. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you are providing a ton of value at your events, especially if it's a paid event. That's when your skin is in the game to deliver an amazing, valuable event. Now, which one is better? The answer is both. I know, super corny, super cliche, but there are pros and cons, like I just walked you through, for leveraging free and paid events. What I like to do when I work with clients, what we did in the past, is starting off with free events and then scaling up into paid events. Maybe if it's your first event, you haven't done one yet, it would be nice to do just a free event. It's like low pressure. You can get people on there, they're not paying money, and you can kind of work with your audience and almost build out the event with them and get feedback on what they liked, what they didn't like. And then once you are amazing at what you do and you've delivered a couple really good virtual events, then you can kind of transition into that paid virtual events realm and start to collect money for it and collect ticket revenue and scale up that way. So I like to start off with free with clients, especially if they haven't done an event before, and then work into paid. However, some people jump right into paid, that works. Some people stay with free, that works as well. At the end of the day, you understand your audience the best. You've probably tested out some of this stuff before. So whatever you think is best for your audience, make sure you implement that. But if you're going to follow my strategy, I like to start off with free events, especially if you haven't done one before, and then transition into paid. All right, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below. And as always, please like and subscribe this video. It helps get it out to more people. Obviously, we're a smaller channel, and I think this content is extremely valuable, and I would like to get it in front of as many eyes as possible. So if you could like and subscribe, that would be awesome. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks.